Angie Dickinson was more than just another Hollywood starlet. She was a revolution in heels. But behind her grace and strength lies a story few have the courage to tell, especially not on film.
Now you're pretty good, but you can be better. And then he just kept helping me, and I finally did the screen test and got the part.
Why did she avoid the set of her most famous movie, Rio Bravo, even after 65 years? Was it simply about self-doubt or the haunting memory of a young co-star she genuinely missed, or was it all three? This is the story of a woman who became an icon, but could never bear watching her origin story again. Before the flashing bulbs and red carpet premieres, before the glamour of award season and syndication, Angie Dickinson was just Angeline Brown, a bright, curious girl far removed from Hollywood fantasies, born on September 30th, 1931 in the quiet town of Culm, North Dakota. She was the second of 4 daughters. Her father, Rio Brown, was a newspaperman, a publisher with inked hands and an editor's eye for detail. Her mother, Frida, a warm, steady presence, held the family together through the waning years of the Great Depression. In 1942, when Angie was 10 years old, her family relocated to Burbank, California. It was not dreams of movie stardom that hauled them across state lines. It was just survival. But Burbank was no ordinary town. It was home to Warner Brothers, Disney, and a slew of major studios. And though Angie had no aspirations of acting, her quiet intelligence and subtle charm would soon make her unforgettable. In high school, she was not the girl dreaming of dresses and cameras. She was editing essays and scribbling story ideas inspired by her father's love for writing. After graduation, she attended Glendale Community College and later transferred to Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles, earning a business degree with plans to pursue journalism or writing, not fame. Then came 1953, and a decision that seemed insignificant. At the time, Angie entered a beauty pageant more as a joke than a goal she did not win. But something else happened. Casting directors took note of her poise, her cheekbones, and that undeniable screen presence. Soon enough, she was offered bit parts on television, often westerns or crime anthologies, roles small enough to forget, unless you paid attention, because even in those fleeting appearances, Angie stood out. She was a mix of intellect, elegance, and unspoken strength, never loud, but never overlooked. She approached acting with the seriousness of a scholar watching, studying, absorbing every set, every co-star, every nuance. She was not racing towards stardom, she was building brick by brick, role by role, learning how to be more than just another pretty face in a sea of hopefuls. By the late 1950s, Hollywood was changing. Gone were the days when leading ladies were untouchable goddesses. Now audiences wanted realism, complexity, and contradiction, and Angie Dickinson fit that mold with uncanny precision. She was not meteoric, she was deliberate. And when the right role finally came along, she grabbed it with both hands. That role was Feathers, in Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo, released in 1959. She was cast opposite titans like John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson. The film was a juggernaut in every sense, and Angie, who was still viewed as a rising talent, found herself thrust into a spotlight that burned bright and hot. Feathers was not a throwaway part. She was bold, clever, flirtatious, and layered. She held her own in a genre ruled by gunslingers and stoic men. But behind the camera, Angie was terrified. She later confessed to feeling like an imposter, surrounded by legends who made it all look easy. Every line, every scene was a test of whether she truly belonged. Hawks believed in her. He saw something that maybe even Angie did not yet see, but belief from others could not quiet the storm inside her. Sharing scenes with John Wayne, a man whose presence filled every room, made her feel small. Dean Martin brought ease and humor, but even his casual charm was a reminder of how hard she was trying. And then there was Ricky Nelson, just 18 at the time. Not yet the tragic figure he would later become, but already possessing an aura that was impossible to ignore. Ricky and Angie developed a quiet bond, not romantic but deeply human, in a set dominated by pressure egos and expectation. They found refuge in their conversations, in those in-between moments where no one was watching. He was kind, thoughtful, and wise, beyond his years, someone who saw through the performance into the person, and Angie never forgot that. When Ricky Nelson died in a plane crash in 1985 at just 45 years old, something inside Angie broke. Rio Bravo was no longer just the film that launched her. It became a ghost story every time someone mentioned it. She smiled politely, But the pain was real, and watching it was out of the question. Not because she regretted the role, but because seeing Ricky frozen in time full of hope and life was simply unbearable. That pain, that memory, that frozen image of the past was too much, and so Angie Dickinson chose never to revisit it, not because of shame, but because of love and grief. The pain of Rio Bravo went deeper than Ricky Nelson's tragic end. It was also the mirror Angie Dickinson could not bear to look into, while audiences saw a confident, witty and magnetic woman. Angie saw something entirely different. She saw a young actress barely holding it together, unsure if she belonged. Terrified of every misstep in a film packed with icons, she felt like the outlier. Her performance as Feathers was praised, critics called her magnetic, and fresh audiences loved her chemistry with John Wayne. Her wit and grace brought something entirely new to westerns, but none of that silenced the self-doubt that whispered in her ear during every take. She later admitted that she never felt good enough, that Rio Bravo was not just her big break, it was also her biggest emotional test. Angie was not just battling a demanding script, she was pushing against decades of tradition. Women in westerns were rarely more than decoration, but Feathers was smart, sharp, and unwilling to fade into the background. She challenged the sheriff with charm, she disarmed audiences with humor, and she held her ground in scenes that were never meant to spotlight a woman that was new and risky, and Angie carried the weight of that risk every single day. What made the experience even harder was the invisible pressure of being a woman in a male story. She had to walk a tightrope between confidence and vulnerability, between beauty and strength. Between presence and invisibility, any misstep could relegate her to being just another pretty face in a tough guy movie, but Angie was determined to be more. She had something to prove, and she did. Still, she never felt like it was enough. She later confessed that watching Rio Bravo meant reliving those insecurities, remembering the girl who tried so hard not to fall apart while pretending to be fearless, and that was just too much to face, even decades later. But while Rio Bravo wounded her, it also launched her. And Angie Dickinson did not stop there. She used the momentum to reshape what women could be on screen. She was not interested in being just a love interest or supporting act. She wanted roles with bite complexity and humanity, and she got them. In 1974, she made television history as Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman, the first network drama led by a female cop. The show was not just a hit, it was a cultural reset. Angie brought authority, sensitivity, and realism to the role, and viewers responded in a big way. The series ran for 4 seasons, won her a Golden Globe, and multiple Emmy nominations, but its true impact was in the homes of women who had never seen themselves portrayed as capable, tough, and in control. Angie did not just play the role, she embodied it, and once again she did it quietly, without fanfare, without demanding applause. She just showed up and did the work. But that success did not come easy behind the scenes. Networks doubted her, executives were unsure if audiences would accept a woman in charge. Angie had to prove herself all over again, and she did. After Policewoman, she continued breaking molds in the 1980 film Dressed to Kill. She portrayed a middle-aged woman grappling with identity and desire, far from the sanitized characters usually given to women over 40. Angie dove into the messiness of being human, and critics praised her for it. She was not chasing youth, she was chasing truth. Off camera, Angie was just as defiant. She refused to play the Hollywood game she avoided. Scandals did not feed tabloids and kept her private life private. She surrounded herself with intellectuals, traveled abroad, and stayed grounded, even as fame surrounded her. She formed friendships with powerful minds like economist John Kenneth Galbraith and kept her identity separate from her celebrity. That, too, was radical in an industry obsessed with exposure. Angie chose discretion. She redefined what it meant to be a public woman. She did not need to be loud to be powerful. Her silence was strength. Her boundaries were a form of rebellion. Angie Dickinson's legacy is not just found in the roles she played, but in the space she carved out for other women. She broke the rules quietly, effectively, and with style. She showed that a woman could be sensual and smart, vulnerable and strong, glamorous and grounded all at once. But despite all that success, there is still one story she will not revisit. Rio Bravo remains the role that made her, but also the role that hurt her the most. It is a film filled with talent, beauty, and unforgettable performances. But to Angie, it is more than just a classic. It is a graveyard of memories frozen on screen. The film captures Ricky Nelson young and alive before the crash, before the heartbreak. It captures Angie herself, raw, unsure, and fighting to belong. And while the world celebrates the movie, Angie carries its ghosts. Sometimes the things that launch us also leave scars, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose not to look back. Angie Dickinson taught us how to break barriers, how to challenge expectations,